Do-it-yourself watch building kits seem to be cropping up everywhere these days. They always struck me as an interesting and relatively painless way to dip a toe into the world of watchmaking, until I saw the price tags. Because let's be honest, spending north of $700 on something that I have a 90% chance of ruining before it even gets a strap on feels like setting fire to my wallet for fun. And I imagine most beginners, who, I assume, are the target market for these kits, would feel much the same. So when I stumbled upon watchsupply.co.uk, I was intrigued. Not just by the kits themselves, but by the price, which seemed suspiciously reasonable. Now, to clear up any lingering doubts about impartiality, I bought this kit with my own money, just me, and an ever-growing collection of questionable financial decisions. But if you'd like to support my efforts, or fund my inevitable replacement kit, there's a link in the description where you can buy me a coffee. And while you're there, why not give the video a like and subscribe for more dodgy time-based content? And cheers in advance. So what's actually in the kit? Everything you need to assemble your very own timepiece. Hand pushers, tweezers, finger cots, which are far less exciting than they sound, plus a case, dial, 2 sets of hands, why? Watch this space, and a movement, all neatly laid out in 2 boxes. There's even a rather charming little book covering a bit of watchmaking history and a link to a video tutorial, which, let's be honest, I probably should be relying on heavily, but like a bull in a china shop, I forget it exists in precisely 3 seconds time. For full disclosure, I've dabbled in watch modding before, but I am by no means an expert, as you'll no doubt discover very, very soon. Less chat, let's get on with the build. For this build, I went with the bronze diver, partly because it's a bit more interesting for the video, but mostly because my bronze watch collection is woefully underrepresented. So why not hop on this bandwagon just as everyone else is jumping off at the next station? The case itself is simple, with a fully brushed finish because, well, it's bronze. It comes pre-assembled with a coin-edged bezel, a ceramic insert and a sapphire crystal. Nothing to write home about, but then again, if you're writing letters about watch parts, you may need a hobby review. Functionally, it does the job. The bezel has a satisfying solid click with little to no backplay, audible enough to let you know that it's there, but not so loud that people across the room think that you're cracking your knuckles in frustration. No surprises when it comes to the movement, it's the trusty Seiko NH35. I could go into details, but let's be honest, even my nan knows what to expect from this workhorse, and she misplaced most of her marbles sometime in the early 2000s. Here, I am adjusting the movement to the 12 o'clock position, which is crucial for ensuring that when I install the hands later, the date changeover happens as close to midnight as possible, rather than at some random point during the evening. Now that I'm satisfied that the watch is precisely at midnight, it's time to remove the crown. This involves pushing the stem all the way in, then delicately pressing down on the stem removal lever with a pair of tweezers while simultaneously pulling the crown out. Like so. On the back of the dial, you'll spot 2 posts that are lined with holes in the movement ring. It's a simple one-way fit, just make sure it's fully seated, no force is required, and no excuses if you get it wrong. The dial sports a simple matte black finish with applied lumed-filled markers, and interestingly, a printed Think Watch logo. Think Watch, for those wondering, is the other side of watchsupply.co.uk. offering fully built timepieces, essentially the no assembly required option. Next, I've reinserted the stem and I'm winding the movement forward a day, partly to confirm it's still at midnight, but mostly to check I haven't broken the bloody thing. And now, the most dreaded part of watch building, the hands. Fortunately, Watch Supply has included some solid hand press tools with various hole sizes and a bit of grippy knurling on the sides, because dropping one of these mid-placement can be the stuff of nightmares. First, let's start with the hour hand. There are many ways to hold the hands when placing them, but the two most used are either with tweezers to hold it steady, or as I'm trying in this case, a piece of Rodico. Others with more expertise make this look a doddle, but as you can see, I'm making a bit of a pig's ear of it. And only a fool would think a suitable prodding tool would be the same piece of sticky Rodico I have used to pick up the hand. Thankfully, I learned quickly and used the end of the hand pressing tool to get the hand into the 12 o'clock position in the end. And once the hand is in place, I've pressed it down with moderate pressure to get the hand seated. Next, a quick check to see if the hand is sitting straight and not scraping the dial. I'll then set it to the 6 o'clock position to set the minute hand. The same process will take place to set the minute hand. Once again, a check of the position of the hands to ensure that both have free movement and don't foul each other. So, yeah, the second hand. Cue the royalty-free, no copyright alternative to the Benny Hill theme song.
Three hours later.
Then, disaster struck. The second hand pinged off and flew into oblivion. But not to worry, remember that extra set of hands that Watch Supply included that I earlier mentioned was a good choice? I remember them too. But can I remember where I placed them? Of course not. So, after searching with no luck, I decided to butcher an old watch that I can't remember buying and certainly ever wearing. And the second hand fit on first attempt. Now, to be clear, there was nothing wrong with the Watch Supply hand. It's just far easier to fit one that's already been pre-stretched around a pinion. It's not the exact same golden hue, and I'll swap it out eventually, but for now, at least this project can cross the finish line. So let's get this thing cased up before I do any more damage. Once the dialing case have a quick dusting, the case is placed over the dial in roughly the correct position. I then flip over the cushion and press the movement into the case using the supplied plastic tool. Once I'm happy the movement is seated correctly, it's time to insert the stem and ensure the crown screws down correctly. Now the case back can be screwed on, but not before ensuring the rubber O-ring is seated. To screw the case back down, firstly using my fingers, before then using the rubber case back ball to ensure a tight fit. Bear in mind that the watch has clearly not been pressure tested, so no water resistance can be assumed. The strap I opted for appears to be a genuine decent quality leather, paired with a hefty bronze buckle signed by Think Watches. A design reminiscent of those chunky Panerai style clasps, it definitely looks the part and complements the case nicely. However, a word of warning, this strap is thick. And I mean stubbornly, unapologetically, barely bends around your wrist thick. It's going to take some proper time breaking in before it feels anything close to comfortable. Luckily, I have a cheap and slightly unconventional method to speed up the process, one that will have it wrist ready in just a couple of days. If that sounds useful, let me know in the comments and I'll put together a video. But for now, let's wrestle this thing onto the watch. Thankfully, the strap comes with quick release spring bars, which are absolutely essential in this case. The thickness and rigidity of the leather make it a challenge to position between the lugs, even before attempting to secure it. Without quick release bars, this would have been a far more frustrating process. On the wrist, as expected, the Oyster Subby style case sits beautifully, even on my child-sized wrist. It's well balanced, snug, and doesn't feel like it's trying to escape every time I move. The strap, on the other hand, is as stiff as a Victorian schoolmaster. It's going to need some serious working in and borderline brutality before it softens up. That said, it's not uncomfortable, and I can see the potential once it finally decides to cooperate. However, once in place, the strap sits securely and evenly, with no unwanted movement or misalignment. It's a tight fit, but that only adds to the overall durability and ensures it stays firmly in place, providing both comfort and confidence on the wrist. And my final thoughts? With these kits, the watch you end up with probably isn't worth what you paid for it in pure monetary terms, and the Watch Supply finished watch is no exception. But that's entirely understandable when you factor in the tools, guides and the consumables bundled with it. What sets this kit apart though is the price. No, you're not walking away with a £300 timepiece, but you're probably getting something on par with a £200 micro-brand watch, if not slightly better. And that's a much sweeter deal than spending upwards of £500 just to end up in the same place. But there's one thing no micro-brand watch can offer: the skills you pick up along the way, plus the tools you now own for future builds and mods. It's an investment, not just in a watch, but in the ability to ruin many more watches in the future. And for what it's worth, I am genuinely happy with mine. It won't be banished to a drawer, never to see daylight again. I'll wear it proudly, knowing it's truly unique to me, covered in nicks, dust and fingerprints, all of which I personally contributed. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.